All right, so there's no new numbers out of Alberta. The eastern provinces have started to release their numbers as of me recording this video, but no new numbers out of the western provinces. Ontario, I think, just released their numbers. They actually had some pretty good numbers, 154 and 138 over the last couple days. So pretty good for Ontario. And my guess is that the numbers will be pretty good pretty much everywhere. There's no clear uptick trend in cases. The uptick is largely due to the increase in testing. And given you've had areas that have been largely reopened for a while now, I mean, Saskatchewan and Manitoba, well over a week. I mean, Alberta is not largely. I mean, gyms have started to reopen. I know those are an area that people have been all hot and paranoid about, but they've been open for well over a week now, and there's been no clear uptick in cases. But we will see. If there's not a clear uptick in cases in Alberta within the next few days, then I think it's safe to say that there's no threat whatsoever to reopening. And the uptick in cases could be due to other factors too. So there's no way of, I mean, sometimes there may not even be a way of telling exactly what has caused the increase right away. Usually they have to kind of trace it back and figure out where all the people caught it from. So that's basically the story out of Canada. The big, I mean, the big story, I mean, that's been talked about is the fact that Nova Scotia has 5 new cases. I mean, they went around 3 weeks with having no new cases, and oh, they have five now, and people are all worried about it. I mean, how does that make any sense? Like Nova Scotia's got a population, I think, got to be over a half a million people, and you got five people that have it, and you're all worried about it. Like it makes no sense whatsoever. So, I mean, the large story is basically just paranoia of people that are all worried about this. It doesn't make any sense. But there is new numbers out of the states. Um, it was the 4th of July weekend, so that probably explains the downtrend in cases. But the other good news too is that not only was there a slight downtrend in cases. I mean, it wasn't that significant. Um, I mean, it was somewhat significant, but there was a very big downtrend in daily deaths. We went from 4 straight days of, in that 600-700 range to 2 straight days of in the 250 range. So again, it's just more evidence that all these people that are all paranoid about the numbers out of the states, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, the deaths have continued to trend down. It doesn't make any sense. Now, I will say something that because it was the 4th of July weekend, there probably will be a little bit of an uptick in cases, but there probably won't be an uptick in deaths. Now, the death numbers will go back and forth. I mean, you can see the death numbers kind of go trend up and down a little bit, but that is what's going to continue to happen. And again, the reason why I point this out is that there's nothing to be worried about. People are talking about, oh, the states, oh, these states, they got to re-close down. It's so terrible. Well, no, they really don't, because the only reason that you would even consider closing down is an uptick in deaths, because that's the stuff you really have to worry about. When you look at the increase in numbers, the vast majority of the uptick in daily new cases is just young people who are largely asymptomatic who are being discovered to have cases. So again, it's nothing we need to be worried about. I mean, I talked about this ad nauseum, but there's still a lot of people out there that are paranoid. So just wanted to point it out. So this is from Dan Bongino, and he says, the body counts will continue to grow in American cities run by radical liberals until people vote for change. It's tragic, but we all know it's true. And again, this is something I pointed out ad nauseum, but I wanted to point it out again because it's something that people should really know. And that's this is the main problem with the Black Lives Matter movement. And this is the problem that people don't understand that support it, is that people take you criticizing Black Lives Matter or disagreeing with Black Lives Matter as thinking that Black lives don't matter and being a racist. That's not what anybody is saying, at least anybody that I've seen. 99.9% of people who are criticizing and or disagreeing with Black Lives Matter, um, what they're trying to say is that your solution to the problems you perceive is not going to fix the problems. And the thing that really puts the cherry on top is that we know, I mean, people like me know, that when they implement their solutions to the problems they perceive that don't do anything, because we know it's not going to do anything. I mean, nine unarmed black men were killed by police last year. If you eliminate that number entirely, that's literally a blip on the radar compared to the thousands that are killed by other blacks, to the hundreds of thousands, I don't, probably hundreds of thousands of people who are suffering because of the welfare state and the remnants thereof. That is the real cause of the pain and suffering of the black community, but they never want to acknowledge that because the real goal of these movements, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all these leftist movements, is socialism, which will lead to communism. That is why. That is the main goal. I mean, the one of the literal founders admitted that. So again, there's no debate when it comes to that. The real goal is communism. If the goal was Black Lives Matter, then the first thing on their list would be, I mean, number one, to acknowledge the fact that literal slavery still exists in much of the world, and it's on a relatively large scale too. I mean, there's more people enslaved in the world nowadays, far more people enslaved nowadays, that is, than were ever enslaved in the States. I mean, slavery in the States was a terrible thing, but the reality is that it happened on a much smaller scale than it did pretty much the rest of the entire world. So pretending that slavery in the States was the worst, I mean, that's not a good way of putting it. Thinking that the stuff that went on in the States was the worst stuff throughout history, it's not even close to true. Like, it's literally not even close to being true. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up as far as that goes. But again, the reason why people disagree with this movement is largely due to the fact that their solutions to the problem are not going to fix the problem. And what will their solution be to the problem when it gets worse? It's just more of the same. And not only that, they're going to blame white people. That is this the other. They'll blame white people and capitalism. Again, it's the classic, California, these far left paradoxes, is that whenever they have a problem, it's blame white people and blame capitalism. It doesn't matter that we're literally run by Democrats from the top to bottom, literally top to bottom. Every position of government is run by Democrats in most of these areas, but yet they continue to blame the right. They blame Trump. Like, come on, Nick, these people are beyond insane. And I would be fully on board the Black Lives Matter movement if they stopped being communist, stopped supporting communism, and fought against real racism and real injustice. But that would require them to call out. I mean, that would require them to call out Hillary and Obama, because they headed up the destruction of Libya, which led to one of the biggest areas of of the slave trades in Africa. So and the Middle East for that fact. Um, Again, so the reason that they don't want to call it out is people would recognize that they've been a fraud this entire time. So of course they're not going to change too. And not only that, they're relatively successful up to this point too. Like, I mean, they've got a ton of donations, which a lot of it ends up in the hands of Democrats, which again is another reason too. For all the people out there that aren't on the left that support Black Lives Matter, a lot of their money that they're getting through donations is going to the Democrats. So again, you're literally supporting your own political demise by supporting this group. So anyway, this is from Spencer Fernando, and he says, "Total clown world. China is engaged in a racist campaign of mass sterilization, cultural genocide, and our own leaders are busy bending the knee and crying about their guilt for Canada's supposed systemic racism. What the F is going on here?" Now, again, a very good tweet from Spencer Fernando, and again, a very good follow if you don't follow him. Very good. And he's a Canadian guy too, so a very good follow. But that's the point. Like, that's the thing, is that China is they literally have over 1 million people, largely Uyghur Muslims, in internment camps. They steal their organs and sell them on the black market. Again, literal racism, literal systemic racism, literal Islamophobia, but yet nobody cares. Now, the reason they don't care is China is communist. When you're on the left, there is a written rule, which, I mean, if you talk to Saul Alinsky and read Rules for Radicals, it's a written rule, but um, if you talk to the average leftist, it's an unwritten rule, and that's the reality is that you can't criticize leftism, no matter any leftist cause. You can't criticize it, no matter how bad it is. You look at these tweets of public figures, specifically the right-leaning ones. Whenever they put out a tweet on the anniversary of the Holodomor or something along those lines, condemning the crimes of communism and terrible, like insane human rights abuses of communism, and you'll read through the comments and like half the people are, oh, communism wasn't that bad. Oh, that's like, again, these people literally denying something that is worse than the equivalent to the Holocaust. I mean, the Holocaust estimates what it killed, what, 10, 20 million people. Um, Communism killed 100 million. I've seen the official estimates show up to about 150. The average I see is about 100, 110. Um, again, these people, they just, there's nothing that will change their mind, basically, too. Like 100 million dead people over the last 100 years, if that's not enough to change their minds, literally nothing will. Literally nothing will. So anyway, a very good tweet from Spencer Fernando nonetheless. Um, and this is news that came out about a week ago, but I'm a little behind on this stuff, so I wanted to talk about it. Um, Unreal censorship happening right now. Stefan Molyneux banned from YouTube. President Trump suspended on Twitch. Sidney Powell restricted on Twitter. The Donald banned on Reddit. This is nothing but election interference by big tech. Retweet if you think it's unacceptable. Now, I mean, I think it's election interference to some degree, but the reality is that these organizations are largely leftist. I mean, there's probably a lot of communists within these organizations, and the only way that the left can win the political game, the game that is politics, is to cheat and to lie and to steal. And that's not to say whether the right's views and policies are perfect. Not, I mean, I disagree with them on a lot of stuff as well. Not that that'll change the left's mind. Like, here's the thing, like just how crazy the left is, that you can literally tell them that you agree with them on a policy, but want to critique it to some point, and they'll still treat you the same as if you're a literal Nazi. Like that, they'll literally treat you the same, which is why the left is so terrible nowadays. That if you don't agree with them 100%, then you are the worst person in the world. You deserve to die. We're gonna put you in a gulag. All this kind of stuff, and it's just terrible. And I mean, Molyneux was someone who I watched, who I was a pretty big fan about. Again, I mean, I always throw this caveat, and people always, I mean, people as well, they throw out, oh, I don't agree with him on everything, but, and nobody agrees with nobody on everything. I mean, I've watched videos of myself in the past and said, yeah, I should have said that differently. So it doesn't matter if you agree with someone on everything or if you agree with someone on nothing. Nobody should be censored, no questions asked, unless they're doing something that is illegal. Unless they're posting stuff that is literally illegal or there is a court order to take it down, they should not be censoring. I don't care what it is. And like I say, obviously people say, you think people should be able to live stream a killing or a rape? Well, no, that's illegal. So no, they shouldn't be able to do that. But um, there's nothing that any of these, and like Molyneux, absolutely nothing that he did that was, he didn't even have any strikes, YouTube guidelines strikes. Like they just make stuff up. Now again, um, the point being too is that a lot of these people, in fact, most of these people, it doesn't hurt them. Like, I mean, you look when Alex Jones got banned, and again, not a guy I'm a huge fan of. I know I just talked about that, but I mean, he's definitely right about some things, which is the crazy thing. He appears like this crazy guy who believes in a bunch of conspiracy theories, which is true to an extent, but he's also right about a lot of stuff. And he was one of the first people that was on the Trump train talking about how Trump is going to win. And this was long before even a lot of the people on the right who ended up supporting him supported him. So, I mean, that's kind of a caveat. But the point being is that nobody should be getting censored unless they're doing illegal things that are illegal. Again, I don't care. This is the thing too, is that I think that if someone, just to prove my point, is that if someone, when we just talked about it too, is that if someone literally as a communist wants to talk about communism on their YouTube channel, go right ahead. As long as they're not talking about doing illegal stuff, as long as they're not trying to do the Bernie Sanders field organizer saying, yeah, we're going to put Trump supporters in gulags. Um, yeah, that's they can talk about. I don't care how much I disagree with it, unless they're supporting literal violence, or I mean, which is illegal. They get free speech. And this is something I brought up as well, but again, I wanted to bring it up again because it's very funny. In that on June 30th, John Tory says he will support a recommendation to make face mask mandatory in indoor spaces where the public gathers. The recommendation still needs to be approved by City Council, and I believe they did approve that since then. And Andrew Lawton responds by saying, amazing how we went from masks are useless and make things worse to I guess you can wear one if it makes you feel safer to we will prosecute you for not wearing one. Again, this is the thing that shocks me is how can the average person hold political beliefs that and not consciously know about it. I mean, if you consciously have yeah, you know, I was completely wrong about that, but again, these people don't even consciously know it. Like, I guarantee you that if you went and polled or asked these people, especially in person, these people that want to make masks mandatory, I would bet you that probably 80 to 90% of them would have told you that they've supported that position all along. When I bet you 90% of them didn't support that position all along because most people nowadays, um, they'll believe whatever the government tells them. And I mean, I don't think it's a huge majority, but I think it's probably a slight majority. They will believe whatever the government tells them, regardless of whether or not that thing the government tells them was something that literally, um, 360-degree contradicts what they said 3 months ago. And the reality is too is that I think the government just didn't they knew, especially in Canada. I mean, we had no supply whatsoever. I mean, we gave a lot of it to China for some stupid reason. Um, but we knew that the government needed to stock up on this PPE, and they didn't want people panicking and buying stuff. But the problem with that too is people were doing that anyway. So I mean, it didn't really make a lot of sense. They should have just been honest with people and said, and again, which just goes to show that they don't trust the average person too. And this is the other thing I hate about democracy, is that, I mean, people take that out of context, but whatever. Um, the government talks about, oh, how great democracy is and it's the best thing ever, but yet on the other hand they only trust people to make decisions on certain things. Like, either you think people are smart enough and intelligent enough to do the right thing on everything, or you think they're too dumb to do the right thing on everything. There's no in between. Like, either people are smart enough or they're not. Like, you can't say, oh, well, people are, again, and this is the other comparison too, is that people are smart enough to dictate who should be running the largest economies in the world, but people aren't smart enough to dictate whether or not they should wear a mask in public. Like, those are things that are wildly on different scales. I mean, the wearing a mask thing is literally at the bottom of the totem pole, and deciding who's going to run the largest economies and have the nuclear launch codes is literally at the top. Um, Again, so it doesn't make any sense from either perspective. So again, it's just absolutely insane that when it comes to democracy, yeah, we trust you to do this, but we don't trust you. Like, again, like they don't believe in democracy. The only reason that the government pretends to believe in democracy is that they know that they're smart enough to convince the largely dumbed down population to do whatever they want, not what's in their own best interest. So um, again, it's just the crazy stuff when it comes to masks. Like, again, here's the thing, and I'll tell you what a government would have done if they actually believed in democracy and thought it was this really good thing, is they would have been flat out and told people. I mean, this is what Tam would have said. She'd have been like, "Yeah, masks are there." I mean, not like this. She would have put it in more, threw in some more medical jargon, but they would have said, "Yeah, masks are there. They help, but they're not this end all be all going to single handedly end the pandemic." Um, the government isn't stocked up right now. We weren't overly prepared for something like this. We need some time to stock up, and in the meantime, we would really appreciate it if the general public would not panic buy masks. In other words, only buy the absolute bare minimum you need to get by. That is what they should have said, but they didn't because they don't trust people. They think that they're stupid. Because, like I say, if they thought that they were smart, they wouldn't have told people not to wear masks. And the other thing too is that they know that the average person's stupid enough to forget the fact that they told everyone 3 months ago that masks don't work. That's the other thing too. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, check me out on, actually a few things. Check me out on Parlay, BitChute, and Twitter. Very important you follow people that are out there speaking the truth. So make sure you check out those links in the description.